Hey there, One Nowhere here, and we're back with another TFT video. This time, our video is a bit different, as you might be able to tell from the lack of music and the lack of TFT gameplay going on, but we're going to go over some of the release details from Riot regarding the upcoming TFT set 9.5, also known as Teamfight Tactics, Runeterra Reforged, Horizonbound. We have changes to existing units, we have new units, new items, and new region portals also coming to make waves on the metagame, which we'll be looking over right here and right now. Keep in mind, set 9.5 is still 2 full weeks away at the time of this recording, so I won't be getting into specific numbers today, as there's still plenty of time for changes to be made on Riot's end. And also keep in mind that I am not a pro player, so chances are the impressions of a pro regarding strategies and comps in the new set will likely be a lot better than my impressions of it. So, for those of you who are into that sort of thing, we have some new cosmetics coming in, including arenas and little legends, including a Chibi Aurelia. So, our new traits coming into the set, though. We have Bilgewater. Bilgerat attacks and abilities mark enemies. The mark stores a percentage of damage dealt to the enemy by Bilgerats. Marked enemies are struck by a cannonball after 2 seconds, dealing the stored damage plus a flat value as physical damage. So at levels 3, 5, 7, and 9 units each, dealing additional damage with additional percentages, and at 9 units of Bilgewater, the cannonballs are also damaging things nearby to the target. Then Ixtal. We gain elemental hexes, which give different bonuses from game to game. At 2 Ixtal units, creates 1 hex, 3 2 hexes, and 4 something cool. So these hexes are based on elements, and they do different things, like give CC immunity and damage resistance. They might protect units that go low on health, and there may be some more carry-related hexes that, for example, could burn enemies when dealing AP damage, that sort of thing. Then we have Vanquisher. Damage from Vanquisher abilities can critically strike. Vanquishers gain bonus critical strike chance and critical strike damage at 2, 4, and 6 Vanquisher. And lastly, we have Reaver King, which is the legendary trait of our new 5-cost Gangplank, essentially letting him switch between being a melee tank or ranged damage dealer. So, moving on to our champions and abilities. This set adds, at 1 cost, the following. We have Graves. He's a Bilgewater rogue gunner. His ability is Smoke Grenade. Launch a smoke grenade towards the current target. It explodes on impact, dealing physical damage to adjacent enemies, and leaves behind a smoke cloud that chills for a few seconds. This ability strikes me as being very similar to Ash's ability, but at 1 cost instead of 2 cost, and it provides some utility. We then have Illaoi, a Bilgewater Bastion. Her ability is Harsh Lesson. She deals magic damage to the current target and links souls with it for 5 seconds, and while linked, she heals for a percentage of all damage taken by that target. So, I could absolutely imagine this being a very solid choice for something like Aphelios Bastion, which we've been seeing plenty of in the current set. So, if that continues to be a thing, I could definitely imagine seeing an Illaoi fitting into a comp like that. And then we have Milio. He's an Ixtal Invoker, also 1 cost, and his ability is Ultra Mega Fire Kick. Kick a ball at the current target that deals magic damage and stuns for 2 seconds. The ball bounces to the closest enemy behind the target, dealing magic damage in a 1 hex radius. It's a very interesting stun, which seems well suited for countering melee carries specifically. Couple changes. Jhin is changing from a Deadeye to a Vanquisher with the release of the new trait. And then Poppy is sticking around as well, but loses Yordle. And these new units do come with a cost, which is the removal of Maokai, Tristana, and Viego, as we see here. Then at 2 costs, we have Naafiri. Naafiri is a Darken Shurima Challenger, and her ability is Eviscerate. Eviscerate the current target, dealing physical damage. And then Darken Dagger. After the holder casts their spell, packmates attack the first enemy hit, dealing and healing the holder each. So it's a very standard damage dealing ability, but the real interesting part of this new champion is that the Darken trait was previously only held by Aatrox. So instead now, you can expect to see Dead Nefiris buffing allies and more substantial carries, and this synergizes very well with Aatrox as well. We'll get into that a tiny bit later. Then we have Kiana. She is an Ixtal rogue slayer. Her ability is Supreme Display of Talent. Dash to strike enemies in a line and deal physical damage, stunning and knocking up enemies for 1.5 seconds. This is our new Zed with a built-in stun. Then we have Twisted Fate. He's a Bilgewater multicaster. His ability is Stacked Deck. Throw a hand of cards at the current target, dealing damage and encircling them. After 1.5 seconds, the cards explode, dealing damage to nearby enemies. Bilgewater multicaster, here it seems that there is sort of a trend with these two-cost multicasters, having very delayed damage. So it could absolutely be very strong, but this does remind me a bit of Teemo, in the sense that the damage is not going to come right away. It's pretty hard to kill units immediately with it. It takes a little bit of time. And then at 2 cost, Ashe is becoming a Vanquisher over having been a Deadeye previously. It's the same unit otherwise, but yeah, a bit of change of trait there. Then removed, in order to make room for the rest of those, are Kled, Teemo, and Zed. When we get to 3 costs, it's where it starts getting very interesting. We have Misfortune. She's a Bilgewater strategist. Her ability is X marks the spot. Call down an X-shaped rain of bullets, dealing magic damage and wounding targets for 5 seconds. So MF's ability follows a standard strategist trend of being a supportive part of your comp. In this case, she's wounding multiple enemies per round. So I really wonder if we'll be seeing some interesting positioning when playing against MF to try to dodge the X-shaped ability with as many units as possible, but we'll see on that end. Then we have Nautilus, something I'm personally very excited for. He's a Bilgewater Juggernaut. Now check out this ability, Riptide. Passive, he gains 30% bonus armor and magic resist from all sources. Also, well, keep in mind that these numbers could change, but... So, passive, he's a very tanky boy. Active, summon a whirlpool that deals magic damage to enemies within 2 hexes, stunning them and pulling them towards the center with a knock-up. He's a tanky monster, passively gaining tons of resists and CCing enemies nearby him. Then Nico. That is an Ixtal Bastion. Her ability is Pop Blossom. Leap towards the current target and gain shield for 3 seconds. Slam down after a brief delay, dealing magic damage to enemies within 2 hexes. I very much expected Nico to be a sorcerer or something in that direction, but it's interesting seeing instead another 3-cost Bastion with a shield ability, especially given Tarek's existence, and no, Tarek is not getting removed. And then we have Quinn, Demacian Slayer. Her ability is Sky Strike. Launch Valor through the row or column with the most enemies, marking them to take increased damage for 4 seconds. Then rain down arrows, dealing physical damage split between all marked enemies. I'm starting to see some potential for some sort of vertical Slayer comp with the introductions of characters like Quinn. So some changes here, which are very interesting. Darius is gaining the Vanquisher trait, so there's therefore likely no need to build Infinity Edge on him anymore. And also interestingly, Rek'Sai is now a Slayer. Very cool. It seems like Riot is definitely trying to reward players for playing with melee carries, which is somewhat of a trend. It feels like most solid carries at the current moment, or at least the reliable ones, are pretty much exclusively ranged. So this is giving another upside to playing those melee guys. So, to make room for this, however, this is where it hurts. We're losing Akshan. My soul is crushed with that one. Garen. Oof. Callista. Good riddance, in my opinion. And Lysandra. This will be a big shakeup, as we've been seeing a lot of these units over previous patches, especially Akshan, Callista, and Garen in carry slots. But then at 4 cost, we have more new units. We have Fiora. Let's be clear, this is pretty cool. She's a Demacian challenger. Her ability is Blade Waltz. She becomes untargetable and strikes the current target 4 times. Each strike deals physical damage and true damage. Heal for 20% of the total damage dealt. If the target dies, change targets to the nearest enemy. This is her badass new melee carry for both Challenger and Demacian comps. She dodges CC while benefiting from a built-in heal in her ability, and I can't wait to watch her dodge all of my CC and completely destroy me. Then we have Mordekaiser. He's a Noxus Slayer. His ability is God of Death. Passive, his attacks deal bonus magic damage, increased while God of Death is active. And the active, he gains shield in one range for 5 seconds, and killing enemies while in this state steals a percentage of their health, attack damage, ability power, armor, and magic resist until combat ends. I really don't know what to think about our buff new Noxian in Mordekaiser. I have a feeling how playable he'll be will be determined more so by the amount of bonus magic damage that he gets, rather than the stat gain on his killing units, because if he can't kill units, he can't benefit from those stats to begin with. So it'll be interesting to see what those numbers end up looking like. We then have Nyla. She's a Bilgewater Vanquisher. Her ability is Formless Blade. Passive. Attack strike in a cone, dealing physical damage to up to 2 additional enemies. Every third attack becomes empowered, striking in a line for physical damage. And active, gain shield for 3 seconds and dash to a safe location. For the rest of combat, gain 44% stacking attack speed, not attacking, stack speed. This is another semi-melee carry, and I'm very excited for it. 44% stacking attack speed and dashes to safety, sign me up. That's very much where I would like to be on playing a melee carry like that. Keeps itself protected and simultaneously just gets better and better through the duration of a fight. So that's interesting to see. Can't wait to play with it. We then have Silco, Zaun Sorcerer. His ability is Undercity Tactics. Throw a vial at a nearby enemy, covering adjacent hexes in Shimmer. Enemies affected by Shimmer take magic damage per second. Allies affected by Shimmer heal health per second. So this bad Zaun boy is an area of effect damage over time mage. He keeps friendlies topped off as well as dealing damage to the enemies. I do have the feeling that Zaun builds are going to rely on Silco being a strong unit if that trait is actually going to go anywhere. Xayah is our Ionian Vanquisher. Her ability is Feather Strike. Summon feathers that converge on the current target, dealing physical damage each. Each feather removes 6 armor from the first target they hit until the end of combat. And the Ionian bonus that she gets, her attacks would restore an additional 5 mana. I do like what's happening with the armor reduction here. I do think I'm, at the moment at least, sort of underrating her. I'm honestly more excited for our other 4-cost Vanquisher in Nyla at the moment. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they balance her. And then changed at 4 cost is Aphelios, who becomes a Gunner over a Deadeye previously. And then removed from the set are Gwen, Lux, Urgot, Yasuo, and Zeri. All of these units had their heyday over the last few patches, with Zeri being exceptionally difficult to balance, it seemed. Either underpowered, overpowered, underpowered again, overpowered again. It's been brutal for her, specifically. I'll definitely miss Lux and Yasuo the most here. And this brings us to our new legendary, or legendaries if you include Rise. So we have Gangplank. He is a Bilgewater Gunner Reaver King. His ability is the Dreadway. He has 2 passives, which work with that Reaver King trait of his, letting him choose between Cutlass and Pistol. His Cutlass passive gains him 50 armor and magic resist, and his attacks ignite the target, dealing true damage over 3 seconds. And his Pistol passive gains him instead 3 range, and his attacks grant 5 extra mana. The active ability summons the Dreadway to sail across the board, crashing into the first enemy hit and dealing magic damage in a 3-hex radius. Allies the Dreadway passes through or hits with the crash are empowered by Citrus, gaining attack speed and immunity to crowd control for 4 seconds. This is similar to Kunkka, if you're familiar with auto chess. GP here brings a big splashy ship to slap his foes down with. He's flexible in that you can play him ranged or melee. I expect to see him as an important late game power spike support character or potentially a strong carry. We'll see. We have Bilgewater Rise, who has the Bilgewater Realm Warp. Creates a portal to Bilgewater, summoning a giant treasure chest to fall on the largest cluster of enemies that deals magic damage. And the size of this chest is increased for every gold you have. Each enemy hit has a chance to knock gold or other treasures out of this chest, and that chance doubles if the chest kills the enemy. From the way it sounds, this strikes me as being, honestly, a better version of Shurima Rise. And then we have Ixtal Rise. Realm Warp Ixtal creates a portal to Ixtal, coating the ground around the current target in a thicket of vines. After a brief delay, deal magic damage to enemies within, and stun enemies at the epicenter for some amount of seconds with a knockup. Allies within are wrapped in bark skin, granting armor and magic resistance for a few seconds. What's not to like? Knock up enemies and buff allies. It's a solid support rise. But removed at 5 cost, however, is Senna. So if you can't figure out from that, it essentially means removed from the game are the traits Shadow Isles, Yordle, Redeemer, and Deadeye. So, now to region portals. It's yet unclear if the region portals of Shadow Isles and Bandle City are getting removed along with their respective Rise versions. I'll comment at some point once I know any further, so feel free to check back if that's something that matters to you. But from Bilgewater, we have Finn's Market, where round 3-7 is replaced by a visit to Bilgewater Trader Finn, who will stock either completed, artifact, support, or radiant items, and you can choose one to keep for free. I'll get back onto some of those item types later. We have Slaughter Docks. At the Slaughter Docks, you'll gain free shop rerolls equal to the stage number plus 1 at the start of each stage. These only last for the round you get them, so star up your units and polish off those comps. Rat Town, that's where I'm at. Starting in stage 2, lucky shops can appear randomly at the start of a round once per stage. These shops feature units tailored to your army's active traits. There's no discount here, but you'll save a heck of a lot in rerolls. From Ixtal, we have Serpentine River. Get those just chatting fingers ready for this one. Instead of carousel rounds, vote for what bonus the lobby should get. Get a component anvil after each voting round. We have Ixaokan. With this portal, everyone loves a reroll player. Each time players star up 20 units altogether, all players gain increasingly valuable loot. And we have Cardinal Arcology. Cardinal Arcology, which will always offer a prismatic gold and silver augment. I'm not sure if it happens in that order, or if it's just guaranteed that you will get one of each over the course of the game, but we will see. And then there's also a new Freljordian region portal, Valar's Hollow, in which you will gain an item anvil on 2-3 and a support anvil on 3-3. So as previously mentioned, the removed traits are Shadow Isles, Yordle, Redeemer, and Deadeye. And then, logically enough, their respective augments are also being removed from the Hearts, and Suppressing Fire was also Deadeye related, Haunted Shell was Shadow Isles related, and All That Shimmers is the one here that is a little bit more notable. So more on All That Shimmers shortly. Then we have item changes. Replaced for items are Chalice / Ice Cream Cone as we know it, Locket, Zephyr, Zizirot, Shroud, and Zeke's Herald. These beloved items are not completely removed, however. They now belong to a class of items called support items. And that's a class of items that is pretty much available through augments or other loot sources. And that class also seems to contain a couple Shimmer Scale related items. So these support items are some of the things that we've been used to, but they're also getting buffs additionally to that to really flesh out that class of support item. So what we have now for craftable items that are different, we have Adaptive Helm replacing Chalice. At combat start, the holder gains bonuses based on their starting position. If they're in the front 2 rows, you get 15 ability power and 35 armor and magic resist. In the back 2 rows, you get 25 ability power and 15 mana every 2 seconds. It's made with a Tear and a Negatron cloak. Then we have Crown Guard replacing Locket. At combat start, it shields the item holder for 30% of their max health for some number of seconds, 8 seconds. When the shield breaks or expires, your unit gains 40 ability power. Then we have Even Shroud replacing Zephyr as the craftable. Even Shroud grants 15 armor and magic resist for the first 10 seconds of combat. And it also 50% sunders enemies within 2 hexes, where sunder is the armor reduction. So it's kind of like the Ionic Spark, but, for armor instead of magic resist. We then, instead of Zizirot, we have Gnasher's Tooth. After casting an ability, gain 40% attack speed for 5 seconds. We have Night Harvester, replacing Shroud. Deal 15% bonus damage, increased to 30%, well below 60% health. And we have Sterax Gauge as another craftable, replacing Zeke's Herald. Once per combat, 60% health, increase max health by 25%, and gain 30% attack damage for the rest of combat. Now, the next couple items here, it's not clear exactly how you get them. Presumably it's through new augments or potentially some other source of loot. But as we can see here as well, Goldmancer's Staff and Mogul's Mail seem to be now Ornn items of some variety. So it looks like you might be able, through an Ornn artifact, Anvil, you might be able to get those. And then we have our support items. So interestingly enough, these are much more, I would say, heavy-handed buffs than I was expecting to see for this sort of thing. Whereas we had things before that would buff things immediately next to it, they're either now buffing the entire team or multiple units in a row or column, for example. So, Aegis of the Legion, at combat start, it empowers all allies in the columns behind the holder, granting 30% attack speed and 20 armor and magic resist for 10 seconds. Banshee's Veil, at combat start, grant the holder and all allies within 1 hexes in the same row immunity to crowd control for 18 seconds. We have Virtue of the Martyr. Heals all allies for 7% of their max health every 5 seconds, and when the holder of this item dies, it increases the heal amount by 200%, so that's up to 21% at the moment, and it continues this duration for 10 seconds. Chalice is significantly beefier in that it grants 20 ability power and 15 mana to the holder and allies within 2 hexes in the same row. And Locket of the Iron Solari, combat start, the holder and allies within 2 hexes in the same row gain a 200, 250, 300 damage shield and 25 armor and 25 magic resist for 20 seconds. Some Ornn item style things. Needlessly Big Gem. If the holder's alive after 15 seconds of combat, your units deal 25% plus 2% more damage per gold you have, with a maximum of 15 gold there. And for every 2 units alive when that happens, you gain 1 gold. Obsidian Cleaver, which was an Ornn item, seems to be now instead a support item. Same as before. Randuin's Omen, similar story. Seems to be same as before. Shroud of Stillness, shoots a beam that 30% mana reaves enemies, but also your team gains 100 health. Zeke's Herald, combat start, grant 25% attack speed to the holder and allies within 2 hexes in the same row. Zephyr, combat start, summon a whirlwind on the opposite side of the arena that removes the closest enemy from combat for 5 seconds. Your team gains 10% attack speed. That's a nice buff. And Zizirot Portal, at combat start, summon a large void spawn that taunts nearby enemies. So these are looking pretty strong. Here we see the breakdown of these items, how they're crafted. And interestingly enough, we also see which traits are craftable. There's some notable changes here. Shurima is no longer craftable. Instead, we have Zaun taking its place. And in the Demacian place, we have the new Vanquisher. I'm sorry, Bilgewater. Vanquisher is right here. So all three of those will now be craftable, which is new. Then we also have new augments, matching our new regions and traits. Bilgewater Heart, Bilgewater Crest, Crown. Same with Ixtal, same with Vanquisher. Then interestingly, for Bilgewater, we have Rising Infamy. At round start, you get a level 1 treasure chest, and your cannon barrages from the passive of this trait permanently improve your future chests, gain 3 Bilgewater units, and the next level, 40 barrages, so presumably that level of chest sort of increases that you would get, depending on how many times that your barrages have fired from that passive. There's another version of this where you get a level 2 treasure chest, and then a radiant one where you get a level 3 treasure chest. Then we have some support item augments. Gain a training dummy. In 8-player combats, equip the dummy with 1 random support item, which cannot be removed. That's our silver augment. The gold one gains a training dummy with a support item already equipped, which also cannot be removed. And then the radiant version gives you a training dummy with 3 random support items equipped, which also cannot be removed. Teaming up 1, 2, and 3, silver, gold, radiant, gives you 1 random support item and 1 gold, 1 random support item and 6 gold, or 2 random support items and 3 gold. And then at a, I guess a rarity level of the augment that's sort of questionable. We don't really know yet where they'll be at, but we can probably make some guesses. Stolen Vitality. When your Vanquisher's attacks critically strike, they heal the lowest health ally for 2% of the target's maximum health, and you gain 2 Vanquisher units. Support Cache. Open an armory and choose 1 of 5 unique support items. And this one seems very similar to the one where you've been able to choose Radiant items in the recent past. And Rejuvenating Flames. Allies heal for 7% of their maximum health every 5 seconds. That would be a little bit much. Increased by 3% for each Ixtal ally that started combat in an elemental hex. Gain 2 Ixtal units. So, from there, we're going to check out the traits here, because we have some new interesting breakpoints for the various traits as well. So keep in mind, these numbers, again, might not be final. So interestingly here, we have Invoker. Invoker adds another level at 8 Invokers now, and which comes with bonus AP as well as mana. Slayer is a little bit different. Instead of increasing with each additional Slayer, the bonus damage now increases at 2, 4, 6. And then Vanquisher breakpoints are also 2, 4, 6. It's interesting because it's new. Bilgewater traits at 3, 5, 7, 9. Then we have Darken. This is maybe the most interesting change because it was previously just Aatrox. So Darken, with the introduction of Nefiri, grants a bonus to the Darken weapon power at 2 Darken, which is very neat. We have Freljord with the removal of Lysandra, so this now activates at 2 and 3. There's no 4. We have Ixtal at 2, 3, 4. And we have Shurima. This is a really interesting change, especially because the Shurima emblem is no longer craftable. We have 2, 4, 6, and 9. And these ascension bonuses that they're seeming to show are very interesting indeed. So, I'm especially looking forward to trying out some new vertical builds like Shurima upon release of Horizonbound. So let me know, what are you excited to try out? Tell me via comment below, and I can't wait to hear everyone's comp ideas given this new setup. So thanks for following along with our overview of this half-new set. Do me a favor and hit subscribe below if you're interested in this sort of TFT content, or if you're looking to improve along with me as we climb up those ranks. Until next time, it's your favorite Bilge Rat and One Nowhere, signing off. Peace.